I just want to acknowledge, to begin with, like each one of you does carry a tradition and has had a teacher, a guru in your life that has made this possible, this spiritual journey possible for you. And you bring a quality in your presence that is very unique. And I would like to hear more. And perhaps it is informed by the presence of your guru, by your tradition, by your lineage. So I just want to invite you to reflect maybe for a moment, or to share with us. I would like to speak not so much about, but from a gift that you've received, or a gift that has informed your spiritual path from your tradition, from your guru, that you would like to share with us. And then we can bring it to more modern times for those of us who do not have lineage and we do not have gurus. Like, what are the times we live in? And how do we call that grace moment to moment in our modern life, in our contemporary way of living and being? And so that's a long question, but just take it wherever you feel called to. Andrea, would you like to start?
There is something which is still a mystery in this some of the traditions that is called in Sanskrit Shaktipat, which is, we could translate it as the transmission of something, of energy anyway. And it has to do with a close relationship with the master. And when this something happens, it is like putting fire, setting fire. That is starting a process that we call spiritual process, which is in fact a cleansing process of our beliefs, of our certainties, of almost everything. And after some times, nobody knows how long, the master said, now you have to develop this by yourself. You received a kind of boost, and now you have to find it by yourself again. And go on your own. So the relationship stayed, even though there was no physical meeting. And it went on, day by day, night by night, until it becomes very clear that there is a link in between that, let's call it, master and the disciple. And then asking to the master, where is it coming from? The answer is, it's coming from my master too. And when I was putting more deeper question, very often the answer was, why don't you trust? Why don't you ask? Why do you still ask for radical questions where you would have a kind of security in an answer? There is a process. And then there is the next, what I call the next step, is when the relationship with the master is no more needed, is no more effective. Then the relationship changes a lot. It becomes what I call a spiritual friend. And there is no more hierarchy, even though there is still a lot of respect. And another last point is the instructor takes care of the disciples in a whole aspect. Food, money, shelter, teaching, health. This is something that we sometimes forget here. That it's really, it's very, very supportive. Until once again, the relationship still existing. I have the chance today of one of my masters still alive. And to give you an idea, for example, he didn't speak for 33 years, he was writing, so the communication was quite unusual. And is a deep spiritual friend. And to end this, I just received about 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, kind of a message saying, go by yourself now. Do no more cite my name. Go by yourself. So I won't tell you his name.
Parvathy, I would love to hear.
I completely agree that the completion in the practice can come only through the relationship that is lived between the Guru and Shishya, the Guru and the disciple. And we have so many ways of expressing our relationship to the Guru. In Baul, we say in 5 different ways, where you can receive Guru in your silence, which is Shanta. You can receive Guru as your mother, which is Vatsalya, where Guru is like loving you like a child. Or you are loving your Guru like your child. There is Sringara, that is, not Sringara, sorry. Dasya, that is absolute surrender, like a slave, which is known as Yatukta Karine. That is, Guru says jump, and you're ready to jump. You don't ask. We have a beautiful story about that. So the Guru says, meet me at 5 o'clock. The disciple says, maybe it's better we meet at 5:30. So the student is giving continuous options to Guru. But when Guru says, I am that, come in the realization, the student says, maybe not now. You lose the chance. So you have to be in the dasya at service to Guru, where if Guru says jump, you don't ask. So it is Yatukta Karine. Then Sakhya, that is the friendship, that the Guru as a friend. Then the Madhurya, where Guru becomes the beloved, the lover. And whatever may be the relationship, but Guru's place remains always ahead. We can never reach, never become same as our Guru. Guru's place is always high. If I think that I have become equal to my Guru and it's not necessary anymore for me, I think we lost growing. Always higher. Guru's place cannot be reached, so that we become humble and become a servant of our teacher.
Beautiful. Mark, do you have anything to reflect as well on your journey in relationship to Guru and your own how...
Times have changed. It's very difficult to find a Guru. I mean, that's a problem.
It's also very difficult to find a disciple. That it's also very difficult to find disciples.
Oh, yes. Sure. Yeah, but Guru doesn't look for disciple. Never. I went to India and I found a guru immediately, but I was desperate. And I see when people ask me, sometimes they ask me, do you know a guru? And I said, well, I mean, when you're desperate, you find a guru. And that's how it is. But we have four things that we revere. And guru, the sacred fire, means like the temple, scripture, and God. So these are objects we revere. From these things we learn. Tripratyam idam jnanam guruta shastrata svataha. That this knowledge has three tests to know. If I think, I think this is correct, then you have three places you go to test it. Like, the touchstone for gold. And the first one is guru. So if you go to guru and what you're thinking, what you believe is not going with what he's saying, then you have to think about that. Second place is scripture. If what guru is saying is not accord with scripture, then something is not good. And third place, after that, yourself. So these three sources of knowledge and these three ways of testing what we've understood go together, sometimes in that sequence, sometimes in a different order. So I think from what I've heard here, then much that comes spontaneously from people's inside, I recognize, I feel that's... But you see, one last thing, and quickly, I suppose that after all these years, for me, because I went down to 17, and now I'm 67, I mean, it's amazing for me. And I worked very hard. Everybody works hard, nothing special about that. But I worked hard for this. For what? For that knowledge, for learning our tradition, for following Guru's instructions and so on. I suppose that what I should do is I should contribute to preserving our tradition. When I started when I began to learn Tantra and Kashmiri Shaivism, which is a very elevated form of Tantra, there were only 5 or 6 people outside Kashmir who knew it existed in India, and 5 or 6 outside India. No. So that was a very surprising, very strange situation. And now there are millions, at least to know what it means. I went to Nepal and I studied a goddess who'd been so secret that for 1,000 years people didn't know she existed at all. People like Hugh Urban, who write about Tantra, say that Tantra is made of open secrets. There's a secret, but somehow everybody knows what it is. So this was a goddess who was kept completely secret. And over the years, the 20, 30 years, I read the manuscripts and studied. We had a team of people, 5 people, typing from manuscripts, editing the manuscripts. And after 20 years' work, produced a work in 14 volumes. That has nothing to do, that may not interest you, and for meditation, I don't recommend anybody else does that. But you felt the impulse for that because the goddess asked me to do it. I lost my liver, I lost a kidney, I had a couple of operations within a month of that book being published, even though she told me that you must do this because I don't want to die, inverted commas, disappear in this form without it being known anything about it. No? So the world that we live in, when we live this life. No. Is built on its own laws and rules and principles. Yeah. I would like to say that I'm very touched and astonished and very happy to see that what can be sometimes very complex and has been, you found the essence. And that's all.
Yeah. I would like to... You want to ask a question now? Yes. Okay. You want to run? Before we continue.
If you don't mind, I want to challenge you a bit on one point, and that is because you mentioned about hierarchy, about knowledge, about surrender, but none of you mentioned what for me is the most important in the disciple-master relationship is about love. And in a way, for me, it is a relationship of love. And the ultimate in love is that you disappear. And there's no more question of separation. There's no more question of surrendering. And there's no more question of knowledge or doing anything. In fact, it is a way of erasing yourself. And that's what happens in love in a way. And I feel you didn't mention anything about that. So I wonder what you want to say about that.
I think you didn't hear about the Madhurya Rasa that we have been speaking, where the Guru becomes the beloved.
Yes, but there are still two.
Sorry?
There are still two. In a relationship, there are still two.
I
The
can't
beloved
understand.
Become one.
and the lover.
Sorry?
There are still two.
They are still two.
The lover and
No,
the
she's
beloved.
saying they become one.
But
There are still two.
that becomes one.
And when
You
they are
become-
one, then there's no more surrender then, and there's no more separation, there's
I think-
nothing anymore.
I think what is I see in the Western countries is that you need to explanation of everything. Usually, our Guru used to say only one sentence, and we contemplate on that for years, and then they have the experience. But in Western countries, you want to explain everything. And it so much remains in the superficial level of not really absorbing what the person is trying to say. You want to hear it out, but you don't want to absorb it. You are here to listen. We are
Yeah.
discussing this.
Yeah.
I think you
So you're
asked the
saying I'm
question.
not listening to what you say?
No, I am not interested in the personal discussion.
Okay.
I am just interested in the aspects that we should contemplate on.
Well, for me, there is no should. It's a question of understanding. When you understand something, there's no should.
My mother tongue is not English, I'm sorry.
In this relationship, love is always implies all the time. Now, it has many different aspects. At the beginning, it starts like kind of friendship, but at the beginning, most of the time, the seeker is reluctant to any kind of emotional relationship with somebody. So it might become a kind of friendship. Then comes another state, which is affection. Then comes another state, which is what we call here love. That is, in love there is a projection of our desire on a person. In that case, let's call him or her a master. Then comes a kind of passion. And passion is something which is no more understandable. It's a kind of sensation where we feel passionate and slowly discovering that it is not about that person. It's a passion, it's like a fire burning without object sometimes. Then from passion, it moves to devotion. And sometimes again in the devotion there is once again the object. Looking for gurus, we're looking for guruship.
Sorry.
That is, the moment we identify a state in somebody, we all know that people are changing. Now, we built up an image that this person should be like this and like that. I am today sometimes in that situation too, where people have built up an image, and I discover that if I do not match to their image, then they are deceived. And even being deceived is, they bring troubles. And what I found is that before looking for somebody that we could call the guru, we should look for a state of discipleship. That is, what is it? What is it to be a disciple? And not looking at the guru email list on the internet, suppose there are some, and visiting some of them. What is it to be a disciple? Yes, there are people who went through child sexual abuse, or they are not only among what is called the spiritual world, it's also among what it is not called the spiritual world. Man is man. Woman is woman. Now, it is about what are we deeply looking for. It is exactly the same thing with political leaders. We hope, we think that they will be perfectly virtuous. And we discover, because journalists are after them day and night, that they are not. Is it possible to make one's life virtuous and not hoping for somebody else having that kind of life? Because we will always be deceived, always, by others, one day or another. Because they will not match our expectations. So yes, there are some people, journalists are talking about it, them, who are not virtuous. It is not a new thing. For me, it's mainly about, that's why I say it's quite simple, is what do I do with my own life? Can I be my own? Is there something within me that can teach me? And today, I dare to say, yes, that exists. There's something that can teach me. That the guru-shishya, the master-disciple relationship, is also a process going into each of us. But that's really another topic. That's what, sometimes people say there is inner guru, inner master. It's about this. Can we explore until this wisdom speaks out?
Thank you. Parvathy, I'm curious, what do you see traveling in the West, and what's your
Watch out.
reflection?
No, I am really deeply touched by the people who, beyond their boundaries, beyond their language, they have the same heart, It's not, I feel that we are born in different countries, but our connection from the past to our spirituality is established beyond borders or language. So we have different birth in different places, and then we continue. But what I feel as a traditional practitioner is that, in a way, a lot of traditional practices being diluted. It is as difficult, it's a crisis, I would say, as the climate crisis, for example. We are destroying our traditions. And to become one with the tradition, even we take the Kashmiri Shaivism, Shaktipat or Baul, it takes lifelong. And once you're in it, you remain in it. There's nothing to achieve, not nowhere to go. You become peaceful and restful within. And when the maturity comes, then it will naturally spread from you to the other. But we are always trying to interpret traditions according to the convenience, not as it is. It has a certain steps. It has a certain way which has been practiced for thousands of years. And suddenly our small mind coming in and changing it all, it is not going to give us a very good result. And it can bring a momentary, power, empowerment. But to be absolutely become invisible, the ego becomes invisible, and you become part of the whole stream which has been flowing from the thousands of years. Can we accept it in that way? Is it possible? And so it is not only question of the Western countries, it is the same problem that we have in India. It's a problem of the world, that how the traditions are going away like the trees. And my master, when I asked my Guruji that, Baba, what was the solution for this? Then he said we should create spaces and possibility of people so that they can come and practice. So to create more and more space, such sacred spaces, which holds that path or that practice, which the other entities want to destroy. Because I feel the attention, the one-mindedness, being absolutely with one path, it's becoming more and more difficult in the modern time. To maintain daily practice itself is a difficulty for many. And there are so many options. And people are not mature before they are given the options to choose for them. So they keep on moving from one to the other and keep on confusing themselves for many, many years. It's not like I find this, so this is it for me, and I sit with it. It is somehow absent. And I took this, when I came to the Baul was perceived only as a musical tradition. They didn't know that it was because Baul music is so beautiful, Baul ways are so beautiful, that it looks like a very good performing art. But it is actually a spiritual practice. And we have a lineage, we have initiation into the practice before you sing or dance. That was not recognized. And that really was a big shock as a student of the Baul. Then my Guruji said it means that we must go out, sing and tell the meaning of the song, convey it to them. Then I asked my Guruji, but how I will go around the world? I'm just a Baul. So he thought for some time. He put his hand in his little bag. He took 10 rupees and threw it to me and said, here is the money, you go around the world. And since then I started traveling and meeting the people. What I'm doing is my service to my Guru, what he said. That go and sing the songs as it is and tell the meaning of these songs to people. And he also said to create, because Baul was a hidden practice, because it was like an underground river. It was not something which people are practicing outside. People are not even speaking about it. So, right now, all the schools, or akhara we call, some of them are 500 years old, some of them 200 years old, some 700 years old, but they're little huts, mud huts. And some samadhis are there, the tomb of the masters. Andre, you must have been to Baul Ashram. You don't even recognize it as a school. You think it's a small little bush and little huts are there. And also because the people are traveling from the city to the village to city, and so many difficulty that the tradition is not able to survive in the modern time. Because it is the people who holds the tradition in India, because it is we work in a community. Even spirituality worked in a community. Then he says to create space and make it visible for people to come and to experience. That was his way of working out in this modern time. To recognize it, not keep it anymore underground, as I think, Mark, what you said, that you should write down. And my Guruji used to say the same thing, that the practitioners must write all this text, all this knowledge, and leave it somewhere so that people can receive, those who need. Not everybody can receive it, so those who need will come and take it. So that is the one way of, I feel, facing the challenge in the modern time. I hope. Maybe. There is no hope, but perhaps.
Yeah. Mark, do you have anything to add? Or
there are different types of gurus. So one kind of guru, and he's very rare, is called Swayam Samsiddhika, who has achieved perfection spontaneously by himself. He took initiation from the goddess, from consciousness, and is a liberated soul who has a full knowledge and understanding of everything that is necessary to achieve liberation and be liberated. There's another kind of guru, the other extreme, who's called Kalpita Guru. He's been fashioned and formed by another teacher. He took initiation, he studied, whatever, he practiced, and he was formed into a guru. And he may have the same consciousness as the one who is Swayam Samsiddhika. They may be both liberated. By the way, it's not necessary for a guru to be liberated, according to our tradition. And then there's the Kalpita. He is half fashioned by himself and half by the teacher. And he's a person who has achieved conviction. He has been given the grace of understanding and insight, but he wants to check that. So he's just not sure. So he'll go to a guru, and guru will say to him, yes, you've understood correctly. So they say that even though they may be all liberated, or at the same spiritual level, the Swayam Samsiddhika Guru, the guru who is enlightened or accomplished spontaneously by himself, is like the sun compared to the other gurus who are like fireflies. And they're, of course, the great founders of traditions. Lineages begin with them. Within another way of understanding Guru, some gurus are yogis and some gurus are jnanis. Jnani, a yogi, is a guru who has achieved experience, who has developed spiritually, and he has reached that very high state. The other is a jnani. Jnani is one who has knowledge of scripture, knowledge of the tradition. Ideally, it's good to find a teacher who is both a yogi and a jnani, who has the experience of yoga and who has the knowledge of scripture or tradition. Avinav Gupta, our teacher in Kashmir, and there are many views. He said, well, if you have a choice between one or the other, he says it's better to go for a man who's a jnani, who may have less realization, but he knows scripture. And the reason he gives for that are because he can teach, and the other one cannot. That's a little extreme because he has his experience, he can talk about that. But in remembering his traditional environment, what is being taught is what is in the scriptures, not my personal experience. That must coincide with my personal experience. So, I just finished it. 2, 3, 1, just quickly. In India, from very ancient times, from as far back as we can go, the importance of the Guru cannot be exaggerated. knowledge, insight, at every level and of all kinds, comes from the teacher. It's very unusual in our tradition that you can also get this knowledge directly from the deity. Directly from the deity. There are mantras for that, in which the deity initiates you directly. In actual fact, it's a sort of, often, or as it was for some, it's a combination of both. The outer teacher, who perform a ritual, complex or very simple, and give you the authority to practice, a kind of empowerment, through Shakti Path as an empowerment. But always anyway, that empowerment has to come. That is to say, the presence of the deity and the deity's power. Now nowadays, in a situation where to find competent gurus in the West, and even in India it's not getting so easy, I don't know, I don't want to say, then what needs to be invoked, of course, is the deity to come and illumine us directly. No. And with all due humility and everything that's like that. So how this impasse will be overcome, then we don't know. Okay, but devotion to the teacher, the master, and is like that. It's not that's not essential, but in cases, because Lord Shiva, he wants to grace everybody, he wants to illumine everybody. So if you can't find a teacher, then you pray to him, you pray to the mother, and she will come, he will come and initiate us directly.
Thank you. Yes, we will open for questions now. Chris, yeah. Let's pass the mics, 1 and then 2.
May I ask you a question from the point of view of a scientist? So I'll give it a little bit of context, but I'll ask it first. The question is, we've talked about the characteristics of a guru. What are the characteristics that you look for in a student?
Sorry, my hearing is going
What
off.
characteristic you look for in a student?
What characteristic you look for in a student?
So let me give you the context.
Yes.
As a scientist, one looks for a student who you believe is smarter than you are and who will be able to prove that you are wrong.
As a scientist,
As a scientist,
for a student it is smarter than you, so it can prove that you are wrong.
oh good, yes.
So hence the question, what do you look for in a student?
So?
So what do you look in a student as a...
Yeah, I look for that. But I fight against it. And in my limited experience, because I don't have so many students, I see that there's a great variety, a great different levels of ability, and there's a great variety of intensity of wanting to grow and develop, right? And some people are very naturally more intelligent, but don't work so hard. Some people are less intelligent, but work very hard. But all of them, however they may be gifted or come through hard work, for a student to be a good student, he has to persevere. He has to persevere because it takes time for most students, however long it takes. So like that, I think as a scientist, it must be the same. The person that you're teaching, he must be very sincere and persevere. He must have great determination. I asked my sitar teacher, Buddhaditya Mukherjee. He's a great musician, and I'm in awe of his ability as a musician. He's a great master. I'm just an ordinary person. And I said, well, what is it that... And he was from childhood. So I said, well, what is talent? What is talent? And he said, talent is the desire to play. Talent. Okay? So that's what I look for. That's what you must look for, I suppose.
Thank you, Chris. We have another question. Yes.
Hi, namaste. I just felt like not really reacting, but putting the attention when I heard Andre's wise answers about how to act in front of some so-called misbehaviors of gurus about sexual things and that, somehow, because it was a wise way to put the attention back to one's own responsibility, and that far I followed. But then I think a big half other part has been not mentioned, what I wanted to point out, and which is most of these things have been put out for mismannering those so-called persons or gurus, and it is not true what they did, and that I would like to point out. At least, who am I to say this is not true? Because I experienced myself to be in such an environment where, and then all the newspaper, all the society were pointing those out. And so most of the time, if you hear about a guru that has been misbehaved, is actually a very wise and enlightened person, or at least innocent, but it's not very accepted in the system, which is very corrupt. So I would like that to put a bit out, that many times this happens. It happens also different, especially even gurus that have morality and have heart conditions that they themselves are not able to hold, and then something explodes also in them, and that's a backfire of their own misteachings eventually. But I wanted that to put out, because even now there is a lot going on in internet, but it is also, I feel, programmed to put somebody in dark spot because some other is interested in putting this in that. So it's a big business in it, which I would like honesty to be the first leader of our way of looking at. Thank you.
One thing is, we are living in a social world where there are laws, and most of us, we know that if we don't respect laws, we might face big difficulties, including going to jail. And I think there is no question about this. If somebody is proved to be a rascal or whatever, well, he has to be punished for it. For me, there is no question about it. Now, the question about truth is another thing. In this quest, it is one of the main things: what is freedom and what is truth? So, it is, if we might talk about this, it's a state. But this state doesn't allow anyone of being unrespectful of social laws. And we should not mix up. Then if somebody, once again, is proved to have done a really bad thing and is punished, it is the social law. And in my point of view, there is no problem with this. Now, of course, there are, with what we call justice, sometimes, maybe often, I don't know the percentage, the sentence is wrong. The understanding is wrong. Now, in this kind of teaching, there's something really tough, which is, if you face a problem, if you face a difficult situation, it is because you have built the problem. Whoever you are, being a student or a teacher or master, being a human being, if you've built a problem at one time, you have to face the consequences. So I know this is easy to say. Because when you're facing the situation, when you feel you have done nothing wrong, it might shift to a belief saying that, well, you might have done something wrong before. Some people believe in forgetfulness or previous lives or whatever. So it is about facing the situations as they are when they come. Either you feel a victim, that is, you're becoming the disciple of the situation, or you feel responsible, that is, you become a master in the situation, not of the situation. And these two possibilities are always existing. We never know what we're going to face, never. I know some very famous people, world-renowned, who have been sentenced by, justice in a country about child sexual abuse. So some of the big, it was a huge organization. So some of the different centers say, well, we quit. We don't have anything to do with you anymore. And at that time, that man was already dead. He was just discovered. And some others say, well, how our life has depended on this teaching. How can I come out of it? Because everything in my life is about the teaching I received from that man. And they went on into the big organization. The main point, the way I look at it, is responsibility. Responsibility means ability to respond. What kind of ability do I have for responding to a particular situation? And I'm totally free for responding in one way or another. The only thing is the response I give, I should be very clear-minded and having no conflict with it, which is the most difficult thing to do. That is, every situation is a possibility to go deeper into the exploration of oneself. Now, the social life has organized laws mainly for us to live in tranquility. Many of the laws have been built, like when you take your car, there are rules. If you don't respect them, you put yourself in danger and others too. So it is not for the pleasure of being restricted, it's to keep us in security. And most of the time, we are kind of rebellious about security, thinking that we'll find freedom out of it, which never works. Freedom is not to be found in the rebellion against social laws. It doesn't work. It has never worked for anyone. It is about getting free from our conditioning, which is something completely different.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question.
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment. I come from the transpersonal psychology field, and there is a term, spiritual bypassing. I just wanted to point out to that, which was originally brought up by John Wellwood in the 1980s, and which is about the fact that any guru, any spiritual teacher has to be, has to be a well-integrated individual. Other words, not just having deep spiritual insights, but being in all other ways be.
We've had discussions in California.
Yes,
There was a
yes,
big
sorry.
conversation around spiritual bypassing just recently. So that's very alive in the
Yes.
community in the West. Yes, thank you for bringing that. I would like one last comment from each one of you. If you could reflect.
Well, one thing I'd like to say we shouldn't forget, and I think we all know, that there are a few people, not many, that if you sit in front of them, your heart blossoms. I remember when you see living in Benares, Ananda Mai used to come regularly. She has an ashram. And we would say, oh, you know, Ananda Mai, she's come. So we'd all go there in a group, like getting ready for, you know, a very strong drink, you know. And she spoke very little. She spoke very little. We hardly have any of her words. And she would sit. You have Ananda Mai.
She
You
left
had a darshan, no?
No, she passed away before I was born.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Andrew did. Andrew
You did.
Yeah, stay with her with 4
So
years.
maybe you know this, or you experienced this. See, and for example, you would sit there, and she's sitting on a ledge somewhere in the ashram, and just looking up into the sky, not saying anything at all, nothing. We don't know whether she was a dualist, a non-dualist, you know. We have no idea at all of her philosophy. What we wonder at is she had a very extraordinary spiritual life. And she would look up into the sky, and you, after 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you begin to feel, oh. And within 5 minutes, your eyes, tears are coming. And within 10 minutes, your eyes are like red, raw, with weeping, you know. And after not more than 15, you have to bow and leave because you're out of... Yeah. And so, and it would take you, I tell you, all day like that. And then the next day, you're coming down a bit. So take 2 or 3 days to get back to your normal screwed up self. And I remember now, you think, well, that's psychological. Well, one evening, I was walking along the ghats, along Benares, the waterfront, late at night, 10, 11. And there's a ghat, which is Ananda Mai Ghat, where there's her ashram. And I was just walking by there and feeling something. Oh, why this emotion, you know? And tears coming to my eyes suddenly, you know. And then I looked around, up, and she was up there. It's very few stories up, looking down. I thought, my goodness, you know. So this is a special power that special gurus have. And it what makes them, if they are in a crowd, followed by thousands and thousands of people, much more than by what they say. So I think we shouldn't forget that, and such people are rare. But they make history. And another one small thing I'd like you to remember, because we all know, Guru never dies. Swamiji, my Guruji, he's alive. He left the body in 92, but he's alive. He's alive in my heart and in devotees. Jesus, who was a very great Guru, you may not be Christian, doesn't matter, he's alive. So presence of a master, even if you don't have a living master, no, you may remember the great masters, and they come and they bless us. They give us grace. No. So, like that. We don't need to despair.
And what a beautiful... Thank you. That's a beautiful know to close on, and just to acknowledge the grace of those masters, that they still illuminate our path, and they're still here. Maybe not in this physical form, but their grace is what brings us here together.
Okay.
You want to hear more stories?
One more.
I will tell you two then.
Beautiful. It's always late. Go.
It's also about Ananda Mahima. I'll do very short. First time I met her, had a private interview with her, which lasted, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. And this energy started operating, not for 3 days, but for 3.5 years, every day and night. A big wonder. Another story is about G. Krishnamurti. I was kind of related to him, as far as we can use that word with such a man. But anyway, I remember first time meeting him was in Switzerland. There was around, 2,000, 3,000 people. And there was this sensation of a very strong blessing. And the blessing was going on all over the valley. And I was touched by him, and I was asked to teach. He asked me to teach in his schools, and so a few stories. And then he died. He, as we say here. About 20 years after, I went back in the same village where he used to go talking every summer. His name was Sanen. And I went to the cheese shop. In Switzerland they have really good cheeses. And buying cheese, I asked the woman who was selling, said, "Do you remember the time of Krishnamurti?" "Oh," she said, "yes, very much, There were so many people coming. This is a tiny village. So we have a huge income. 3 weeks with him was the same income of the whole year." And she said, we cannot forget him. And then suddenly 2 policemen came in the shop. And the lady asked them, said, "Do you remember when Krishnamurti was there?" And these 2 men, one of them had an incredible answer. He said, "Yes, we remember very well, because for 3 weeks there was no car crash anywhere in the valley."
Wow. There was
no car crash, no accident in the valley. Every year. And it lasts for about 20 years, I don't remember. So we're really talking about unusual people. And our understanding at a certain level doesn't work anymore. It's a big mystery.
Everybody wants to say something. I want to remember the last moments with my master, Guruji Sanatan Baba. So a group of devotees had come to see him, and he was in his last time. They came from very far, and they stayed for 6 days with him. And he was in his last bed, like he has to leave. And only thing he asked, "Did you have your tea?" Okay. After 2 hours later, "Did you have your food?" Okay. Again he asked, "Did you have your tea?" So he is never saying, and they're always waiting for some guidance, something, and he never says anything. He just keeps on saying, "Did you have your tea or water?" Then finally they were leaving. Their time has come, they have to go and get their vehicle. Then one of them came to me and asked, "Can you ask Baba to tell something to us which we can carry?" So I went and I whispered in his ear, saying that, "Baba, they want to hear something, you tell." Then he said, "1 sentence is okay?" Then I said, "Yes, 1 sentence is okay." Then he says, make your life into a prayer.
Make your
Life into a prayer. And I just want to say about, as a conclusion, is that the modern time has come through many other times and it will continue. The traditions also have passed through the time and has found its way, because this energy is always will come up, the Shakti will always come up. So we always think that we are going to protect it, we are going to do this, do that. Nothing necessary. It will exist, always. We just need to make our life into a prayer.
No more words are needed.